100 longevity lifestyle designers. This is Gavin here with Secrets of Longevity.com. Welcome to my 500th video. It is a landmark time for me, and as well I would assume it's going to be somewhat of a landmark for my viewers. You just saw a new intro there. I was working on a new idea for the logo for quite some time, and I created this more as an artistic expression for my own personal satisfaction, I guess, but I did want to tie it into my work online here. I grew up extremely creative in terms of almost always doing something very right-brained, right hemisphere of the brain in terms of creativity, so music, painting, etc. I was always doing those types of things, and in my adult life I've been doing a lot more left brain stuff. I always had the left brain thing going on too, but I've definitely been more dominant on that, so I think getting in some more of these creative things has been very good for me. And it signifies sort of a progression of where I've come to through my own work. It's very symbolic, as you can see, and I'm going to talk about the symbolism in both images, and hopefully for those of you who are kind of freaked out by the images, because there's definitely sometimes associations with certain symbology, and these are just associations. A symbol is a symbol. It's what you attach meaning to it. Yes, symbols have sort of archetypal meanings on a deeper level, but I think a lot of people have this sort of paranoid cover over what these very ancient symbols can sometimes hold. So I'm going to talk about that in this video. I'm also going to talk about where I'm going to be headed in the future on this channel. I have a lot of exciting concepts and things I'll be sharing. You've already sort of seen the way I'm transitioning over the last little while into a few different topics, and it's going to continue to branch out and get really in depth into certain aspects of certain topics. So first of all, definitely there's also the new music with the logos that goes along there, and the music is a Creative Commons free to use song. And aside from the fact that I quite enjoyed the song, it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea in terms of the full song, but it is tuned to 528 hertz frequency. I'm not entirely sure what part of the song is like that, but this is a frequency that's sort of in a, I guess it's more of a new age concept, that it can help in facilitating the repair of DNA. The idea is that these frequencies were determined, and there's 9 frequencies. 528 hertz is actually the central one of 9. So there's 4 before it, leading up to it, and then 4 afterwards. So all the numbers within each frequency add up to 3, 6, or 9. And this is called the solfeggio harmonics, or frequency, which is a different type of tuning that was supposedly used in ancient Sanskrit and ancient Gregorian chants. And it has a much more ethereal type quality. You've probably heard that type of music. It's not the da 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 da. It's, I'm not even going to attempt to do it, but it's just a different sounding scale, and it has a very interesting healing quality. I've definitely experienced healing from it. It's up to you to determine what you get from that, but that's going to be a part of my intro for a while. I'll probably change my intro a little more often, play around with it, because I like to keep things fresh. And yeah, getting into the logos, I wanted to really talk about some things I've never actually revealed, even perhaps to anyone. So my classic logo, or the second logo, if you followed me for a long time, you remember I had a logo that was the yin and yang with the Chinese dragon encircling it, biting its own tail, like the Ouroboros, which is the sometimes it's seen as a serpent, sometimes it's a dragon, where it's signifying continuity and sort of infinity. That was done by an artist friend of mine. I had it commissioned, and that was my original logo. Then I moved and created my own, which was much more elaborate. I guess it's a little more than a logo, because it's usually a logo is very simple. This is just an image I have associated with my work and the name Secrets of Longevity, and this is definitely the one that's going to stay as the main one. And there's a lot of symbology in there that signifies longevity and infinity, things of that nature. So you have the Ankh, the Egyptian Ankh, which is a very old symbol of, once again, infinity, longevity, even immortality. even if it's more of a spiritual type immortality. It's also called the key of life, so it kind of signifies life force. It's very positive in that sense. You have the intertwining snakes, the caduceus, which is the symbol often associated with medicine and health and healing. So that made sense for me to include that. But I also have the red and blue, which signifies sort of masculine and feminine, or hot and cold, or yin and yang. So bringing in that element into that. Then of course the snake heads kind of form a heart right around that central area of the ankh. I don't know if anyone noticed that. And then you have a few other things going on in that image that are a little more hidden. There's some stars in the background. No one actually ever told me if they noticed this, but it's actually a constellation. It's the Draco constellation. And aside from the mythology of dragons and their sometimes dualistic type personality or qualities, in some cultures they're very positive and some more negative. In this case I was thinking of it in terms of the very positive qualities of, especially if you look at Chinese dragons, and the quality of various animals coming together to form one whole sort of immortal animal. So I believe it's something like the talons of an eagle, serpent's body, fish scales, lion's head, and a deer's antlers or horns, and that's sort of the idea of the Chinese dragon. So yeah, there's a lot of symbology there, and actually the pinnacle point star, which is right at the top of the ankh, is the star known as Thuban. It used to be the pole star, or the northern star, the one that was at the very top of the planet in terms of being in line with the planet's axis. And so as the sky would rotate around as the planet spun, it would be the one star that would stay in its place. But because of the precession of the planet's wobble, so the planet's spinning, but it's also doing a slight movement over many thousands of years. It completes one rotation. So that central point would have moved from Thuban many thousands of years ago to the current North Star. So they're very close in proximity. So at the time that the pyramids were built, Thuban was the North Star, and the observation pathway that they've created that was pointing at Thuban now points at the North Star. The qualities associated with that star have always been immortality, because it was the one star that would stand in its place, and longevity, and the quality of ongoingness. So that's obvious why it would be on there. And yes, I've had people make comments about the logo. It's not everyone's cup of tea, because people look at symbols in a very simplistic way. They see snakes, they automatically think things related to the Bible if they happen to be religious, and I can't help those people. It's up to you what you want to hold as fears in your psyche, but that's simply not what they're about. And with this newer one, which is perhaps even more intense, because there's a larger snake and there's the Eye of Horus and all these things that even non-religious people today might see and call to be quite odd in some respects. There's even more symbolism there that I'll briefly explain. And I like the idea of transitioning from night to day. Sort of has a positivity about it. Not that the night's a bad thing, but I like the idea of including both in the intro like that. And one thing with the Eye of Horus, which is the real meaning of that, please don't start talking to me about Freemasons and all that. It is a symbol that goes further back than a lot of these traditions that people on the internet have hijacked in some ways and tried to make a negative symbol out of it. So you see a cobra descending down and then winding its way and coming up sort of in the foreground. This is an Egyptian goddess known as Renenutet, or sometimes Renenet. And this later was seen as an other aspect of Wadjet, also known as Urias. A lot of Egyptian gods kind of morph into each other and become different gods, and they're all technically the same god or goddess. And that's kind of similar to Hinduism and its polytheistic ideas. I really like the symbolism of this in this respect, and Renenutet has a very specific symbolism. It's a lesser known Egyptian god or goddess, and she embodies abundance, bountiful harvest, and all things to do with the Nile creating abundance as well. The Nile was very much the lifeblood of all of Egypt because it would irrigate crops, and not many people lived at the height of its civilization beyond the area of the Nile because you just couldn't live in plain desert. There were no resources, there was no agriculture there. So you could almost think of it sort of the way I didn't first intend it to be, but it turned into this. I realized that in the first image you have the rising of these two very primordial energies and the idea of the Ankh and the embodying and convergence of those two qualities or energies becoming something greater. And then in the next image there's something greater, which is the I Force, which is self-awareness, which is consciousness, which is, if you want to get religious or spiritual, God. You have descending out of that the manifestation of abundance, and not just agricultural abundance, but also material wealth and well-being, because that's what allows us to exist on this planet and create what it is we want to do in the world. And if you really think about it, a very small group of people own or control the largest amount of wealth on the planet, and it doesn't hurt to have sort of these concepts of bringing that wealth down to earth and bringing these pretty terrible people down to earth. And that's where I'm going to get to as part of my next part of this video, which is talking about where we're going with this channel. I've always been interested in topics of global situations, more and more, as you've probably seen, either in vlogs or in the recent video I did on financial longevity, getting more and more into economics and seeing how a lot of that stuff, which I just ignored for a lot of my life, is very similar to health in that the same philosophies can be applied. So when you start trying to stop and suppress symptoms of illness in the body, it can be likened to the way the powers that be in the world are trying to solve a lot of the financial problems. These are not solutions. These are patchwork solutions that have greater consequences down the road because they're not dealing with the core issue, the underlying root problem which needs to be addressed. So that's a quality we're going to be talking about later on in the future. Probably a lot of you are already on the same page, I'm assuming, to some degree. You know about problems in the world like everyone else. I perhaps might be able to offer some clarity on my ideas around these things. But most of all, and I've already done a lot of work around this area of being self-sustainable. Health is a massive component of that. And I know you know this, but also wild foods, wild foraging, being able to sustain yourself if you were ever in a situation where you didn't have access to a grocery store, but even farmers markets. So more and more I'll be talking about a lot of strategies around survival and preparedness, because if we really think about it, this is something we all want. We want longevity of Earth, and by Earth I mean both ourselves, because we're on the Earth, as well as our surrounding environment. We want longevity of Earth, longevity of worth. We want our financial stability. We want to have a future. We want to be able to build our community, build a family perhaps. And we also want longevity of mirth. I just had to make those rhyme, of course. And by mirth I mean contentment, happiness. Joviality is another synonym for mirth. You know, everyone says health, wealth, and happiness, and I thought that was just too cliche. So, earth, worth, and mirth. Anyways, the idea is that to truly both have a long life, but also consistent and sustainable happiness and ways of being able to live in the world, more and more I have been approaching everything in my life from the place of almost like a martial arts self-defense type of attitude. It doesn't mean I'm confrontational, but there's a lot of wisdom in treating every situation and thinking about the worst possible scenario. So, you know, worst possible scenario in the global community, what are the worst things that can be happening right now? A lot of people know about the problems going on in the world. At the making of this video, is the U.S. going to attack Syria? Is there going to be more nuclear weapons discharged, or whatever happens? Is that stuff being dumped into the atmosphere? There's stuff going on with Fukushima. They just admitted even though a lot of us in the health community knew this was leaking out for several months, many months since the accident first happened, I guess a year ago now, they're actually admitting to the vast amounts of radioactive water that's spilling out and just completely blanketing the Pacific in these problems. So, strategies to fend off the stupidity of the rest of the world. Obviously not everyone in the world, but a lot of the people in charge of things. And greed comes into it, and that causes problems. But then you also have to think about more domestic issues. A lot of people take self-defense classes for that purpose, whether it's more for a firearm or more hand-to-hand combat. These things all have their applications, and it's reasonable to think that, I could be doing all these things to, detox my body, eat the best diet ever, exercise, but if I got mugged the next day and stabbed and, something was severely damaged or I died, all that effort's gone to waste. It might have been an inspiration to other people, but keep it real. We wanted to live for as long as possible. At least if you have a strong survival instinct, you do. And to be really healthy is to have that instinct. I might even start creating some videos about possible disaster situations and what you need to be doing in preparedness for that. Not everyone can build a bunker or has the extra funds to do that, but there's a lot of really cheap things that just require your time. They don't require a lot of investment. Take the simple statistic. In the Great Depression, 7 million people in North America, I'm not sure if that's just within the US or US and Canada, 7 million people died of the combination of starvation and malnutrition, so health problems caused by malnutrition. That is astounding. These were largely in urbanized areas because people who lived on farms, if the dollar conks out and you have no more savings left, you're still consuming the food that you're growing or you have on your farm. So I'll be talking about a lot of that stuff in the future as well. And to wrap it up, I'm very happy and pleased that I've reached 500 videos. Also right on the cusp of 10,000 subscribers. I thank you guys again and again. It's just every day I'm very thrilled and happy to be able to do this and put this content out there. And I'm very thankful and grateful for everyone's support. And it's just been over 4 years as well, so over that time, it's been my pleasure to work with some of you. It's been wonderful talking and interacting with some of you, and I think that just about sums up all my feelings about what I wanted to espouse on this momentous video. So let me know what you think in the comments below about any topic I discussed. And with that, I'll talk to you next time. Take care and embrace life without limits.